Okay, greetings aviators and aviation fans. This is Mike, the Chili Dog pilot. Hope you guys are all doing well today. Taking the plane out for a quick flight today and kind of wanted to demonstrate something that has been gnawing away at probably the Tomahawk community online recently. So in this episode you're going to hear me be a little bit of the old man and complaining, but I want to give some context. So to start with, I just saw recently on YouTube and some of the other social media, for one reason or another, just comments about the Tomahawk and how, it was or is considered a dangerous airplane and maybe doesn't have the flying characteristics that should be incorporated into a trainer. And so what I want to do is first kind of dispel that. In doing so, I want to talk a little bit about the Tomahawk's history, how it was designed, and kind of what the actual state of the airplane is, and then some of my thoughts on maybe the way training was being conducted, and probably some of the things that maybe led to the misnaming and the lore around it being called the Tomahawk. So I'll go into that a bit, and then what I want to do is really demonstrate the area that I hear a lot of criticism of, and that's basically the unstable flight characteristics of the Tomahawk, especially in stalls. And I think if you spend any time online, you'll see numerous people making comments about that. What I would question is either was there adequate training, or is this just more urban legend and lore and not actual experience? So with that, let's first talk about the Tomahawk. I think I talked about this briefly in another video, but I think it's worthwhile sharing once again. So the Tomahawk was designed in the 70s, and it was primarily designed to be a trainer that was going to compete with the Cessna series of trainers, primarily the 152 and the 172. In doing so, when Piper was designing this airplane, they sought and surveyed, thousands of CFIs on what were the elements that a flight instructor would like to see in a training airplane. And so what came of that is what you see in today's airplane and what I'm flying today. And just a few things to make mention of that I think are important is if you're a little bit heavier guy or a larger shouldered guy like myself, one of the things you'll appreciate in the Tomahawk compared to the 152, it does have a wider cabin, so there's just a little bit more elbow room for two people when you're in here in a training environment. The second thing is the layout of the design. I think what CFIs wanted and what Piper designed into the Tomahawk is an airplane that has everything right in front of the student. So not only do you have your six-pack and your instruments as well as all your radios, but the nice thing they did here, and this is unlike a lot of the other Piper aircraft, is your fuel control system is right next to the throttle quadrant as well as your fuel gauges. So you can see everything in one simple place, and quite frankly, I think you got to go out of your way to run out of fuel on a Tomahawk, because that information is readily and easily visible for the pilot. So other things besides the cabin width and the layout of the controls is the fact that the visibility in this airplane is phenomenal. I mean, you have full 360 degree visibility. The downside of that is on hot summer days like this, it does get to become a little bit of a greenhouse, so hopefully that greenhouse effect doesn't impact any of my cameras today. But you have great visibility, and then obviously with a low wing design, in my opinion, that also improves visibility quite a bit. And then the landing gear structure, is somewhat similar to those Cessna planes. It is a spring landing gear, a spring or steel rod landing gear. So very simple, but yet can endure, a little bit of punishment from new pilots coming into the place. Maybe the one critical thing that I know some people don't like, what was very common of pretty much all the Pipers during this time period, is the Tomahawk does have a T-tail. And this was kind of the design feature that was going on with Piper. You see that in the Arrow, the Lance, and the twin-engine airplanes at that time. So for whatever reason, they like the T-tail design. So let me just take a quick aside and just talk about that real quick. The downside with the T-tail is your elevator flight control services are not in the slipstream of the propeller. So airspeed is very important to the effectiveness of the elevator. And so what that means on two fronts, so for taking off, you're not going to have any elevator control until you reach kind of that control, that airspeed in which the elevator becomes effective. So for newer pilots flying one of these airplanes, whether it's this one or the others in that design, If you have full back pressure, you can often be surprised, because when it does become effective, that effectiveness hits pretty quickly, and then what ends up happening is people will get a rapid nose-up movement and potentially even a tail strike. So that is one of the things to be aware of with the T-tail. And then the other thing is on the approach to landing. It's important to fly your airspeeds, because if you get too slow, you are going to lose elevator effectiveness. And what you don't want in any of these airplanes is to lose that elevator effectiveness when you're in the flare portion of the landing. And that is certainly a bigger issue in the land, so that's a heavier airplane and has that momentum that you're going to, and inertia that you're going to need to battle against. But that's just a side note. Going back to the Tomahawk and kind of the part of the topic here, which is really, I think, what gives the lure and some of the misunderstanding about the airplane, is one of the things that a lot of the instructors at the time told Piper was they wanted an airplane that required actual control inputs to recover from a spin. I think, and this is my assertion, I didn't research this at all, but I think what you ended up having here was a lot of pilots who probably were World War II era or learned in airplanes that were not as stable as the Cessna and required those control inputs to recover. And I think in their minds as CFIs, they wanted to make sure all pilots had that fundamental airmanship so they could recover from a spin if they were put into one. One of the videos that I saw that kind of starts having some conversation about this, and it wasn't specific to Tomahawks, but it's a lot of airplanes, was the flight instructor was just showing a spin in one of the Cessnas, and basically all the instruction was to the student was, if you let go of the controls, the plane will recover. And that was probably one of the benefits or designs for Cessna at the time, which is, a good design in the sense that it made that recovery easy. However, in my opinion, I think what that also did was rob some of those students, and even possibly flight instructors, in how to recover an airplane that does require deliberate movements to recover from a spin. Because otherwise, you would find yourself in a situation where you would recover, you would let go, and the plane will continue to spin until it is basically commanded or maneuvered to get out of the spin. So that is one of the challenges that you could find there. So anyway, with that being said, the design of the Piper was a plane that was, one, that was designed to spin, and two, required actual control inputs to get out of the spin. And so I think my best surmise here is, despite the numerous stories that you'll hear about numerous deaths due to spins, I think there were a few, and a lot of them were probably due to improper training, either on the part of the student or even the instructor, if they may have learned in another airplane that was more stable, didn't require that deliberate input to recover from spins. So with all that being said, the other thing is you'll hear stories online from people, and I often question if they've never flown a Tomahawk, is how dangerous this plane is when it stalls. So what we're going to do now, once I get up to altitude here, is I want to demonstrate all three types of stalls, so power on, power off, and an accelerated stall, to show you that the plane is relatively benign, and as long as you keep it coordinated, which is, in my opinion, just basic airmanship, the plane will recover and not put yourself in a situation that could be conceived or perceived as dangerous. Now, the one caveat that I will say here that I can't speak to is, one of the things that was changed with the Piper design in lieu of some of this early incidences with spins and stalls is there was an AD that basically required all the airplanes to have stall strips installed. But my understanding is that was pretty early on in the airplane's life. So a lot of these stories that I hear of people, in the 80s and 90s that were having trouble with aggressive stall characteristics, I just don't necessarily believe that to be true. That being said, it does very much require that you, when you are flying this airplane, that you do need to keep it coordinated. And I think that's, again, basic airmanship. So as long as you keep yourself coordinated, I think a lot of these issues that you may hear or see, or perceptions you hear and see with the Tomahawk, are not necessarily legit. All right, folks, so as we're climbing here to an altitude that we can do some of these practice stalls and maneuvers, I just want to lay out what the plan that I would like to demonstrate for you to show the characteristics of this plane that maybe are contrary to what all the rumor and fuss that you're seeing online is. So what we will do is I will do, like I said, 3 stalls, and initially I'm just going to do the stall recover. You can see how benign it is, and again, the key to a good recovery here is to keep the plane coordinated. The second part that I will do is after we do a power on, power off, and then a accelerated stall, is I will go ahead and let the stall fully develop. We can do that both in power off and power on. But all you're going to get, as long as you remain coordinated and you keep the wings level, is you'll get some buffeting and then a nose drop. So not too different than any other plane. Obviously, if you're uncoordinated, because this plane is designed to spin, an uncoordinated situation could yield a spin for you. And we're going to avoid that today. But again, my intent here is to try to show you or demonstrate to you the stall characteristics of this airplane. So one of the things I'm going to do too is I added another camera to try to capture the instrument panel a little bit better, so that way you can see both the coordination, just the overall attitude. So here we are level at 6,500 feet. I'm going to pull the power back a little bit and let us get to about 70 knots, which is the rotation and climb out speed. And then once we're at 70 knots, I will go full power. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the nose until we stall. We'll keep it coordinated. We'll let the stall develop. We'll recover quickly. We'll do the same thing, power off, and then we'll let it develop into a full stall. And then after that, we'll do the accelerated stalls, okay? So pulling power back to about 20 RPMs for the time being. I'll let the plane slow down a little bit so we don't climb too high as we demonstrate this. And I had done a clearing turn prior to started talking again, so we are clear of any traffic and I don't see anything on ADS-B. So here we are at 70. I'm going to start pitching up to about, climb attitude at first. We'll go full power, and then I'm going to continue to pitch up. And again, the key here is to remain coordinated. So I'm going to hold it at about 10 to 15 degrees nose up. We'll pull up even more. And so what we should start hearing is a stall warning. That's my altitude alert. And as long as I stay coordinated, there's a buffet. And then so if I just nose down a little bit, let the airflow reattach to the wings, we will start flying. So no problem. And we lost, in the climb we maybe lost 1,000 feet or 100 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and keep us in this lower speed. I'm going to introduce the flaps. So I'm going to go flaps 1, make sure fuel pump is on and our mixture set. So again, we're at 70 knots, so I'm going to go flaps 2. The nice thing about this airplane is a lot of the speeds maneuvering in the around the airfield is a 70 knot. So approach and takeoff climbs are 70 knots. So I'm going to pull the power back now. I'm going to get us in a 500 feet per minute descent. I'm going to go engine idle, and then same thing as before. We're at 6,500 feet. I'm going to start pitching up as if we were in the flare, and then we will see what happens when it stalls. There's a stall warning. There's a little bit of buffet, and then just the nose drop. So if we add power, we allow the slipstream to get, or the airflow to get back over the wings, and we can climb out. Okay, so I'm going to continue to pick up speed here, and I'm going to raise the flaps. I'll start doing another turn just to check for traffic, and then we will do the accelerated stalls. And then after that, so I kind of said this backwards, but we'll do the accelerated stalls first, and then we will then go ahead and let the stall fully develop, both in the power off setting and then the power on setting, just to see how the airplane flies. So as you recall, if you remember from your training, an accelerated stall is usually a stall that occurs when you have a banking motion, so therefore you have a part of your lift goes into part of your lift vector goes into your horizontal vector, and what ends up happening is the airplane will stall at a speed higher than what is the normal stall speed, because you're going to hit that angle of attack at a much higher speed. So the way we'll demonstrate that for you is I'll start a steep turn, and then we will pull the power and so as we lose power, we'll continue to raise the nose and increase that angle of attack, and then that should give us an accelerated stall. And then before we do the stall itself, the other reminder is when you're in an accelerated stall, what you want to do again is lower the AOA, and you do that simply by just letting off on the back pressure, allow the airflow to reattach itself to the wings, and then you go wings level. So you're not introducing a rolling moment while you're in that kind of stall situation. And so we'll do that here. So we're cruising along about 80 knots. I'm going to bank it to 45 degrees to the left. Key here is to keep coordinated, so 45 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and pull the power. So we'll go 45 degrees, and I'll keep pitching up. There's the stall warning. There's the buffet. So if I just let the nose down, recover, go wings level, and we can add power. We recover, and we did that, just inside of 100 feet. So we'll do it again to the right once we get our speed picked up. And just to show you again, the Tomahawk is not this unstable aircraft that is creating major, pitch or bank indications on you when you're stalling, even in an accelerated stall. But the key here is, what I think is important for all aviators, regardless of what airplane you're flying, is good airmanship. And primarily what I'm talking about here is knowing the proper recovery sequence, but also making sure you keep the airplane coordinated. A coordinated airplane, should not spin on you, and if you properly reduce the AOA, get that airflow back on attached to the wing, you're also going to not see, any massive banking pitches, banking movements on you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pitch to the right, again 45 degrees. Once we get established in that turn, and now I'm coordinated, I will go ahead and pull the power, and then we will continue to pull back and watch the stall happen again. So there's the stall horn, buffet, release the AOA, add power, roll wings level. Again, nice quick pickup, less than 100 feet drop. I probably could have done it even less if I wanted to be cleaner. So while we're kind of slow coming out of this stall, that accelerated stall, I'm going to go ahead and add the flaps back in. I'll do one more turn to make sure there's no one around us, and we will do a power off stall in the landing configuration, and we'll allow it to fully develop. So what I'm going to do is pull the power, get ourselves slow, we'll stall the airplane, and we'll just keep letting it buffet and nose drop, and we'll do that for probably 1,000 feet or so, just to show you how the plane handles it, and it does so again without any major movements. And but what it does certainly induce is a lot of altitude loss. So actually before
traffic 4 o'clock.
And traffic is actually myself. But real quick, the other thing I want to show is the slow flight characteristics as we're turning around here. So I got full flaps in. We're currently at 60 knots. I'm going to let the speed bleed off a little more. But I can take it right to the bottom of the white arc, and as long as we stay coordinated, the airplane will fly as well as any other airplane in slow speed situation. So the bottom of the white arc is about 50 knots. Right now we're bleeding off from 55, and we're continuing to lose that airspeed. I'm pulling the power back more just to get us on that lower side of the envelope. So there's the stall horn sounding. There's level flight. Roughly 50, or right at 50 knots. And just add power, keep it coordinated, and it does just fine. So I'm going to head off here to the north a little bit, and we will go ahead and pull the power completely and let this stall fully develop. Okay, so there's wings level. I want to just make sure we stay coordinated. We're at 50 knots. Power's coming out. I'm going to hold this pitch attitude, and we're in the red. There's a little bit of a nose drop. Full elevator, so the nose just keeps dropping, and as long as I stay coordinated, the plane is fine, and we keep the wings level. So there's a nice 500-foot drop for us. So again, we will stay level. We'll pull back. We're still at idle power. I'm just going to hold it 15 degrees. Again, as long as you keep the wings level, plane coordinated, it's not going to stall. It buffets a lot, and that is fine, but that is the key there. All right, so I'm going to add power, relieve some of the back pressure so we reduce our AOA. I'll pick up speed, and we'll do the same thing in a clean power on configuration. So there's 60 knots. I'm going to lower flaps 1, and then I'll lower the second set of flaps here in a moment. And the nice thing about this is I need to get below this cloud layer. We're flying over kind of a broken space in the airspace. So I will turn around and do this power off, or power on, and then we'll get below the deck. And then I'll finish up with some of my other thoughts and conversations around this. But hopefully, by now, at least you feel a little more comfortable knowing that, you know, the Tomahawk, like many airplanes, while coordinated, you know, has relatively benign stall characteristics. It will buffet. The wings will, you know, roll a little bit, but there's no dramatic wing drop. And ultimately, it will drop the nose and try to reduce the AOA on its own to recover from the stall. And checking traffic again, I don't see anyone out here. We'll do a 180-degree turn just to clear it once more. I'm keeping us at 70 knots, and then we will pull power and, or not pull power, we'll add power and let a power on stall develop for us. All right, so I'll head towards an area that has very little clouds, and then we'll just keep an eye on the Bravo airspace as well. Okay, so full power, we'll pitch up, and obviously since we're adding power, we definitely need to stay on the rudders because there is that turning tendency from the prop wash. So we'll keep that centered. There's the stall warning. And obviously with power on, it's just going to hang here. And as long as you keep the controls level, it will just do this and we'll lose a little bit of altitude. So we'll go ahead and recover. So just a little bit nose down and we'll recover. On behalf of a lot of the Tomahawk owners who kind of were a little, you know, I think a little bit bothered by some of the rhetoric that keeps going out there about how good the Tomahawks are or are not. And a lot of it is based on misinformation. I just wanted to show and share with you that the Tomahawk is, you know, a relatively easy airplane to fly. It does require you to have, you know, definitive inputs and keep coordinated. But beyond that, it is a fun airplane to fly. It is docile if you keep it within the parameters that you should. And quite frankly, you know, my biases here is that if you're a pilot, or whether you're a private pilot or higher, none of these things should be a challenge for you. So certainly I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm sure there's going to be some folks who are going to give me a different story about their experiences with Tomahawks, and you know, I'm certainly open to it. But like I said, if you talk to the number of Tomahawk pilots out there, you know, there's an owners group that I'm a part of. I think most of us will tell you that those situations are probably either one-offs or things that happened early on. But by and large, you talk to anybody who's flown a Tomahawk or has any time in a Tomahawk, they will certainly reiterate what a great airplane it is. And while it was not financially a strong seller, part of that was due to the factory being flooded and damaging a lot of the equipment that they ceased the production of the airplane. But a lot of CFIs at that time will tell you that it was actually the preferable trainer between this and the Cessnas. Doylestown traffic, Tomahawk's turning final, 23 Doylestown. So one of the nice things about the Tomahawk here is, depending how you look at it, is it will sink like a rock if you pull the power. If you need to pull the power, this plane will get down quickly. Okay, so we're on airspeed, and we got a bit of a crosswind, so we'll just be mindful of that. And watch our speed. Runway's made, so we'll go ahead and pull the power. And we'll just start to lift her off and rest the descent. nice strong crosswind today. And we have another heat wave, so it is a scorcher. So as soon as I get off the runway here, we will leave the airplane, turn on the fuel pump and the landing lights, and then we'll crack open the door.
As always, thank you for joining me on today's flight. Hope you enjoyed the stalls in the Piper Tomahawk. As always, please recommend me to others, subscribe, and please click the follow button, and we'll see you again soon.